A good evening, this is the Nerd is the Human, and welcome to this modding guide for Medieval 2 Total War. The Kingdoms DLC brings many new and exciting units, from the Spanish Dragoons in the Americas DLC to the Greek Fire Throwers of the Crusaders DLC. I have often been asked to create a guide on how to make these DLC units available in the base game, and I had always assumed it would be too complicated. However, during my Spanish Gunpowder Only series, I decided that such a campaign would be incomplete without the excellent aforementioned Spanish Dragoons, so I set out to explore how I could mod them into my game, and it turned out to be surprisingly simple, so today I will take you through those steps. This video will focus on the Spanish Dragoons, as they are a fairly simple example that you can apply to any other units should you wish to add them for yourself. I will also discuss the French and New World Cuirassiers, which are also from the Americas DLC, as they showcase a few problems that you might come across and provide an example of how you can troubleshoot any of your problems. At the start though, it is key to state that every unit will be different. That is certainly my experience of this modding so far. This guide is not going to be a one-size-fits-all approach. Now my guides are usually very beginner friendly, I would however call this intermediate. But with a little bit of initiative you can apply this guide to other units from the Kingdoms DLC. As is often the case in Medieval 2, you will need to unpack the files in order to make all of the edits I recommend in this video. Luckily there is a guide on the channel to help with that. It is appearing at the top of the screen now and is also in the description below. To transfer a unit from the DLC over to the main game, we need to of course find the original files, and to do that we are going to head into the DLC, so we will head into the mod folder and from there into Americas, into data, and the first file we need to edit is down near the bottom, is export Desca unit. And on the left here I've got the original version of the files. Likewise we're going to go to the same place, data, and down towards the bottom, export Desca unit. Once inside the file we'll need to search for whichever unit we want to add, in this case the Spanish Dragoons. So if we search for that with Ctrl F, we will find the unit slightly further down the file. So we're simply going to highlight that, we're going to right click copy, and over in the original version of the file we're going to find a place for them to go, and I'm just going to put them next to Conquistadors just so it makes some kind of sense to me. Spanish Dragoons inserted into the file, and that is perfect, but I'm also going to do it for the New World Cuirassiers, so let's have a look for those guys. They're the mounted Cuirassiers, and there we are, New World Cuirassiers. We will highlight that. We're going to once again copy it and we'll paste it in next to our Dragoon friends. Perfect. We can save that up. Back inside the data folder, and we need to search inside the Americas DLC for all of the files to do with the Dragoons. Now this is where it's kind of important to get your search terms correct. If you search for Dragoons, you're actually only going to find these two unit cards here. Now actually if we search for Dragoon, most of the files will use that phrase and we'll find everything we need. Do be careful with that kind of detail. However, let's have a look at this folder here, because actually the Dragoons aren't in the original game, so it already has a folder with it all set up ready for us. Textures in here, there are a couple, and then we have ourselves some more textures with these mesh files, which is excellent. Now if we go back to the search results, you'll see that we've got all of these middle sections here were just in that big folder, which is excellent. So we can simply copy that folder and we need to put it in its relevant equivalent place in the original file. So data, unit models, units. So data, unit models, units, and we need to paste in our Dragoon. Next up we have these three sprites, and for those you can obviously hover over to try and see yourself what the path for them is. So data, unit sprites. Fine. So let's head back over here into data, into unit sprites, and we can just paste those straight on in. The last two files are to do with the unit cards. So we've got the Spanish Dragoon here. Again, hover over it if you need to see the exact path. We are going to go into data, and from there UI units Spain. Perfect. So data, UI, units Spain, and we can paste in the unit card. Perfect. And the next one is the unit info. Again, if you're unsure, just hover over it. Data UI unit info Spain. So back into UI, unit info, into Spain, and there we are. We're going to paste that in as well. If you search for the New World Cuirassiers, you might well run into the problem that you aren't finding all of your files, and this is where getting your name as specific as correct is going to be important. But these of course are our unit cards, so we might as well add these in anyway. That one belongs to Spain, this one belongs to France, this one belongs to England. So at the very least, let's start by sorting out these and then we'll fix the problem. With the info cards added to the English and French UI folders, then we can head back to try and work out what files might be missing. And I should point out a really important factor here. So I've opened up the Export Deska unit file again, and the Spanish Dragoons, you might notice, have their own model for the armour and their own model for the soldier. That's why we had to add so many different files from that big folder. However, the New World Cuirassiers already have their model in the game. They are dismounted conquistadors. You can see that in the soldier and the armour UG models line. Now, because they already exist, we don't need to add as many new files in. So every unit is going to be slightly different, and you will have to do a little bit of your own troubleshooting to work things out. That said, there is still one small file missing for both of the English and French New World Cuirassiers. We'll come back to that later, and we'll use the system log to help us out with that. But there's one really important file we need to edit first. Back inside data, we need to head into unit models once again, and we need to fiddle around with this file here, battle_models.modeldb. Now this file is notoriously awkward to edit, and it does look like a bit of a mess. However, there is a formatted version available on the Total War Center, and I'll put a little link in a pinned comment down below because it is certainly very helpful if you want to play around with this yourself. Now I do also have a little bit of a cheat version to deal with the problem, but we'll open it up and I'll show you how you can edit it. Once inside the file, you soon see what I mean about it being completely unreadable. However, we're going to make a little bit of sense of it, and we're going to search for the Dragoons. It is right towards the bottom of the file, and we need to start highlighting with the number here, 15 before Spanish Dragoon. Now the end of any entry is this set of 4 numbers like this, so it's always quite easy to, in theory, see. Now this line, as you can see how far we are scrolled along, is going to keep going along like that, but it actually doesn't finish at the end of that row, so we're going to need to, I got quite lucky there, and it appeared right in front of me, so you can see now I've got that highlighted. We're just going to copy that line. I'm going to paste it into the equivalent version over here in the base game. With both versions of the blinding file now open, we can simply copy this line here and paste it over into the original version of the file. Now I've made sure to have a space at the front and to not have a space at the end so that our formatting is as clean as possible. I've found a clear end of an entry over here in the middle, and I'm simply now going to paste that in. Now a lot of people find if they paste in the entry at the very end of the file that it doesn't work. Now there is a very probable reason for that, and that's partly why I've just shoved this unit into the middle here. However, what's really important is this number up at the top here, 701. That's the amount of entries in this file. Now the Spanish Dragoons are a new entry, so we need to change it up to 702. If there were 2 armor models, say an upgrade model as well, we need to upgrade that to 703. We've only added 1 new thing in, so we've added 1 to this number. If you don't do that, the chances are, I'm guessing that's why your unit at the bottom of the file is being chopped off. A big shout out to Charles Armstrong, who does a lot of modding on the Total War Center and commented on my previous video where I looked at this here file. That was a video where I looked at moving units from one faction to another. Now, he put a really useful comment on that, explaining in a bit more detail how this file works. And this was something that I neglected to mention in that. So big shout out to him. That will probably troubleshoot quite a few people's problems with this file. If you look for the New World Cuirassiers inside here, what you'll probably find is that nothing comes up. And that's because inside Export Deska unit, we saw that the armor models and the soldiers for the unit were actually dismounted conquistadors. So that is the section we need to find here. So we're going to do the same thing again where we take this section and we paste it into the original. Do just be aware that, of course, there are a few different entries for this here because, of course, they exist for Portugal, as we can see there. They exist for Spain and England and France. So we're going to highlight those and put them over into the original version. Do be aware, though, we're not actually adding in any new models into the armour section, so we can keep that original number at the very top left. I'll put 702, which is how I left it from the Dragoons. If you're still having problems with this file, then you can go for a little bit of a ham-fisted and cheaty approach to fix the problem, and that is to simply copy the file and paste it over to replace the original. Now, this does solve quite a few problems, but it does come with some limitations. Basically, the files inside the Americas DLC do still include all of the originals from the base game, but it just adds in the new units from the Americas. So by doing this, we can now use the Dragoons, the New World Cuirassiers, absolutely fine. There's no issue there. The limitation is that if, for example, you want the Dragoons and, say, the Greek Fire Throwers from the Crusaders DLC, then you will need to actually edit this yourself. But if you just want to add the Dragoons in for a Spanish playthrough, this particular solution, albeit a little bit of a cheat, will absolutely do the job. If we now head into the game, then we can see the New World Cuirassiers are indeed popping up for the English and the French, and we get our Dragoons for the Spanish. However, as I said, we might well miss some of the files, and there's still a problem with the Cuirassiers. To fix this, we need to go back inside Medieval 2 and head into the system log. This will help us find out any files that you may have missed. Inside the system log, you'll hopefully be able to find whatever errors that are still coming up with your game file. Now, in my case, these very two bottom warnings here are telling me that I'm missing two key files. Inside data unit models, where we've spent some time already, there's another subfolder called attachment sets, final Iberian_England_diff.texture, and a second assembly name file is missing. This problem has come about because the unit here, the New World Cuirassier, comes up with some different names for it. Iberian_England is nothing that we've seen in any of the previous files, and until you get this error message, I don't see why you would know to look for it. However, we now know what we need to look for. There is also two sets of equivalent files for the French as well. So now we know what we're looking for, we can look for Iberian England, and then we'll come up with these two files, _norm.texture and _diff.texture. We can look where they belong, which we know anyway from the error log, but if we hover on over it, you can see it is in unit models, attachment sets. So we're going to copy those, bring them over to unit models, attachment sets, and paste them in. We'll then do the same for Iberian France. And with those two, we will copy them and they go in the same place here, paste them in there. And now, with that one small bit of troubleshooting done, we can now load the game and it should all work. If you have any further problems, you will simply need to use the system log. Every unit I've tried to take from the DLC to the base game has been slightly different as an experience. There are always potential problems, and this is no longer really like the most basic bit of modding. This is more intermediate now. You're going to have to use the system log to troubleshoot some of your problems. But I have found it's a lot simpler than I ever imagined it would be. So from here, we can now load up the game and start using these guys in battle. Currently, this unit would be available in custom battle, but it wouldn't be recruitable in the campaign. To deal with that, we need one final edit, and that is to head inside Export Desk of Buildings inside the data folder. So we're going to open that up and just add in a tiny bit of text. Once inside the file, you simply need to go and add your Spanish Dragoons into one of the buildings. Now, I've selected the Military Academy because it's quite a rare building that only a few factions have access to, including Spain, of course, and it seems to make sense for me to get this elite unit out of this particular building pool. Now, you might want to use the original file just to get an example of the unit, but you can easily just edit this if that's what you want to do. But we'll search with the Americas version of the file to find some Dragoons, which are available from the military barracks originally on that game. Excellent. So there we are, Spanish Dragoons, and we're going to paste that into here. We will just move it across. Do remember, if you're going to insert it into the building file here, Any upgraded version of the building, such as the Officers Academy, you'll also need to add it in or you won't have access. So let's just add them in once again over here. And you might want to change around some of the numbers, maybe give yourselves more of a maximum recruiting pool or increase the amount of them that are available every turn, something like that, to make it well worth upgrading the building for some kind of benefit. And with this we can now get the Spanish Dragoons available in our military academy, and I'll do something similar for England and France with their New World Cuirassiers. I'll probably put it in the same chain of buildings actually. There we go then, I've added in the New World Cuirassiers over into the military academy as well. Now when we save this up, we'll not only be able to use these units in the battlefield on custom battle, but also in the full campaign. Into battle we go then, and here are our Spanish Dragoons. Of course, if you've been watching the Gunpowder Only campaign, you will well know that these guys are ridiculously OP, but they are still absolutely beautiful. Let's get them heading on in. Over here are our New World Cuirassiers for the English, not Silver Surfers, looking resplendent in their armour. Lovely stuff. And yes, there are the French equivalents in their slightly bluer versions. Very, very nice indeed. We can have a good look at their unit kind descriptions. They are pretty solid, by the way. 2 hit points, 14 attack, 18 defense, excellent morale. These guys are monstrous. They will still, though, get slaughtered by the Dragoons, I imagine, because even with the extra hit points, they're getting themselves gunned down. And as you might well expect, they are the same unit, of course. You might well expect the English and the French are going straight for each other, and the Spanish are just going to gun them down from this side. This is really a battle of the ages with all of these guys. They, yeah. I mean, they're very nice units. It's great to see them here on the main game. And do have fun with whichever units you want to do. But I think we'll just take a moment to enjoy the battle here. Enjoy this fun scene. Because, yes, the English and the French, once again at war. And the Spanish doing, well, Spanish sometimes allied with the French, but mostly we are just all at war with each other forever. I'm saying we now, as an Englishman living in Spain. England and Spain pretty much hated each other forever. It's still, I think, fairly mutual today, really. Constant nonsense about Gibraltar and the like. But yeah, we are quite easily winning all of this. The classic feuds of the ages can continue into the new world, but continue into the base game as well. And with a solid bit of cheating on turn 1, we have ourselves the Royal Officers Academy here for the French. And you can see we can hire ourselves all sorts of wonderful units. The gendarmes, the French mounted archers, those guys are lovely. And the New World Cuirassiers. As you can probably imagine, I do not speak French. My pronunciation is probably awful, but we can now hire these guys. They'll take 2 turns to get on out, but I don't see why we wouldn't immediately go for all of that. So there we are. We can hire these guys up in the campaign. We can use them in the battlefield. I would say this has been a very successful bit of modding. Thank you for joining me today on this modding guide for Medieval 2 Total War. I do hope that this guide can help you mod the game for yourself, and I'd love to hear which units you are most excited for. Of course, though, do back up any files before modding so you're not forced into reinstalling the game. Though as a further point, I had originally planned on explaining the Greek fire thrower, but it is a fair deal more complicated as they include a whole new weapon type that needs a lot of troubleshooting. So I thought for today I would keep the video more simple. Now, if this video does get enough traction though, I would consider making a specific Greek fire thrower guide in the future. A big thank you to all my members and Patreons for supporting the channel. These Friday videos do take a lot of work to put together, and I can only afford to make them with enough support from all of you. So if you would like to support the channel, then do spread the good word and consider becoming a member by following the links in the description. For now though, I will leave you. I am Thomas, this is To Nerd Is To Human, and this has been a modding guide for Medieval 2 Total War. Thank you friends, and bye bye. Have you heard the good news, my friends? Here's the good news! It's the Pope! Has the Pope ever done as badly as I'm doing as the Pope right now? God only knows. God only knows. Down goes the spoon of destiny. And there he goes. It took every last bolt we had.